welcome to JSS Matriculation School Talawadi Social Class. Today I go to explain you history lesson number 2 from trade to territory. In the past class I explained establishment of political power by the English East India Company, Carnatic Wars, Mysore and its residency to British expansion, and Anglo-Maratha War. Today, I go to explain you the British administrative organization in India. The British Indian administration was run by four principal institutions: civil services, army, police, and judiciary. Now, first one we are going to learn about civil services. The term civil services was used for the first time by the East India Company to distinguish its civilian employee from their military counterparts. Translating law into action and collecting revenue were the main jobs of the civil services. The civil services was initially commercial in nature, but later it was transferred into public service. In the beginning of appointment to these services was the sole prerogative of the court of directors of the company. But the nominated civil servant indulged in corruption, bribery, and illegal private trade. So, Cornwallis, who came to India as Governor General in 1786, enforced the rules against private trade. He also raised the salary for the company's servant, who became the highest paid civil servant in the world. Lord Wellesley, who came to India as Governor General in 1798, introduced the idea of suitable training for the civil servant in India. In 1800, he established the college in Fort William at Calcutta to provide training in literature, science and languages. However, the directors of the company disapproved of his action and replaced it by their own East India College, established at Haileybury in England in 1806. The idea of competition for requirement was introduced first by the Charter Act 1833. But the system of computation was these not nominated by the court of directors were not eligible to write the competitive examinations. Hence, the system was called as nomination cum computation system. The system of requirement on the basis of opening competitive examination was introduced in 1853. This system was confirmed by the Government of Indian Act of 1858. The maximum age of the competitor was fixed at 23. Subsequently, East India College at Hailsbury was abolished in 1858, and requirement to civil service became the responsibility of the Civil Service Commission. By the regulation of 1860, the maximum age was lowered to 22, in 1866 to 21, and the 1876 to 19. The Indian Civil Service Act of 1861, passed by the British Parliament, exclusively reserved certain categories of high executive and judicial posts for the covenanted civil service, which was later designated as the Indian Civil Service. Due to the lowering of age limit and holding of examination in London, it could be possible for all very few wealthy Indians to appear at the ICS examination. In 1869, Three Indians, Surendranath Banerjee, Ramesh Chandra Dutt, and Bihari Lal Gupta, became successful in the ICS examinations. Satyendranath Tagore, the elder brother of poet Rabindranath Tagore, was the first Indian to pass the ICS examination in 1863. That is the remaining points. Later on, the Indians demanded to increase the age limit and to establish center for examination in India instead of England. In 1892, the minimum age limit of appearing for the civil service examination was raised to 21 and the maximum to 23. In 1912, a royal commission on public service was appointed. Chaired by Lord Illingston, this commission had two Indian members, G.K. Gokhale and Sir Abdur Rahim. Beside four Englishmen, the commission published the report in 1817. Illingston Commission's recommendation partly fulfilled the demand for the Indianization of civil service. In 1918, Montagu and Lord Chelmsford recommended that 33% Indians should be required in Indian civil service and gradually the number should be increased. In 1923, a Royal Commission of Public Service was appointed with Lord Lee of Fareham as chairman. This commission recommended the recruitment to all Indian service like the Indian Civil Service, the Indian Police Service, and the Indian Forest Service should be made and controlled by the Secretary of the State for India. The Lee Commission recommended the immediate establishment of a public service commission. The Act of 1935 also made provisions for the establishment of a Federal Public Service Commission at the center and the provincial public service commissions in the various provinces. Provision was also made for a joint public service commission in two or more provinces. Although the main aim of these measures was to serve the British interest, it became the base of civil service system in independent India. Next we are going to see second one, that is army. The army was the second important pillar of British administration in India. The East India Company started recruiting its own army, which came to be known as Sepoy. The Sepoy or soldier or army. The Sepoy army was trained and disciplined according to European military standards and was commanded by European officers in the battlefield. During the early stage, the British rule, three separate armies had been organized in three presidents of Bengal, Bombay, and Madras. Army has a great contribution in the establishment and expansion of British rule in India. Indian soldiers were given less salaries and allowances than the English soldiers. In 1857, the Indians constituted about 86% of the total strength of the company's army. However, the officers of the army were exclusively British. For example, in 1856, only three Indians in the army received a salary of 300 rupees per month. The highest rank an Indian could ever reach was that of a Subedar. Strength of the British Army, if you want to go to see that. Palestine War, 1757 it will be fought now. 1950 European infantry, 100 European artillery, 50 English sailors, and 2100 Indian Sepoys and English army of 6,000 troops was maintained in Bengal. In 1857, the strength of the army in India was 3,11,400, of whom 2,65,900 were Indians. Its officers were Britishers. After the revolt of 1857, the important changes were made in the Indian Army services in 1858. They increased the British troops and reduced the Indian troops. Also, only English were appointed in artillery. Next, the third point of the point is police. When the East India Company took over a Diwani in 1765, the Mughal police system was under the control of Farazdars, who were in charge of their sarkars or rural districts. The Kotwals were the charge of the towns, while the village watchmen were paid to controlled by the Jamindars. The police system was created by Lord Cornwallis. He relieved the Jamindar from the police function and established a regular police force in 1791. Cornwallis established a system of circles or thanas, each headed by drogas. The authority of droga extended to village watchmen who performed the police duties in the villages. The hereditary village police became chowkidars. In the big cities, the old office of Kotwal was, however, continued, and a Durga was appointed to each of the wards of a city. The Durga system was extended to Madras in 1802. Before, the post of district superintendent of police was created. All the thanas were under the general supervision of district judge. In 1808, a superintendent of police was appointed for each division. Later, the district collector was entrusted with the task of controlling the police force in the districts. The main task of the police was to handle crime and prevent conspiracy against the British rule. Next, the last point of the heading is judiciary system. In 1772, the dual government was abolished and in 1772 the dual government was abolished and the company took over the direct responsibility for the collection of revenue as well as the administration of justice. Consequently, a Diwani Adalat and Fardari Adalat were established. By the Regulating Act of 1773, a Supreme Court was set up in Calcutta. This court consisted of a Chief Justice and three Fusions judges who are appointed by the Crown. This court decided civil, criminal, essential, and admiralty cases. On the model of the Supreme Court of Calcutta, a Supreme Court was established in Madras in 1801 and in Bombay in 1823. In 1832, William Bentinck started a jury system in Bengal. A Indian Law Commission was established to compel the law. A rule of law was established for the whole empire. According to the Indian High Courts Act 1861, three high courts were set up in Calcutta, Bombay, and Madras in place of the old Supreme Courts. Do you know? The Eliza Impe was the first Chief Justice of Supreme Court of Fort William in Bengal. Sir Tiruvarur Muthuswamy was the first Indian Chief Justice of the Madras High Court.